Hi, everybody. This is Mr. Mariglia to help you take your computer based test and look at some of the tools that are included in that. So, let's take a look at what a general math test would look like on a computer. And I'm going to show you some of the various buttons are here. So, we have a review button over here. It shows us that we're online, what kind of test it is, the question number. We have a click for directions. We have a sign out and pause button that we definitely don't want to click on unless our teacher gives us directions to do so. We have some arrow buttons to let us cycle between the questions. And then we have a whole bunch of tools on the bottom that I will go through. Another thing to remember is that you can scroll up and down by using two fingers. It looks like almost like a peace sign on your trackpad. You can also click and hold this bar with one finger and then drag it with another. That will help you get through everything. So let's take a look at a question and some of the tools we might use while answering them. So let's take a look at this first question, and we're going to go down here and take a look at the zoom tools. So I'm able with the plus or minus to zoom in. Maybe I want to read this a little closer. So that allows me to zoom in. The minus button lets me zoom out. And then if I keep going back and forth and kind of forget where the question originally was, I can simply hit this refresh button down here, and it will put the question back how it originally was set up. Now let's say we're taking the test and we'll just randomly go to question number 3. And I'm taking this test and I say, oh man, this is going to be hard for me. It's going to take me a lot of time. Or maybe I'm working on the question, I'm getting frustrated and I want to move on to something else to get some fresh thoughts going. I can go down here and use the bookmark button. Whenever I click on the bookmark button, it's going to stay this way. But then when I go and hit the review button, you notice it will make this question bookmarked. So I know which ones I have to come back to. We're going to look at this review area again when we show you how to use notes and at the end of the test. Next tool we're going to look at is the note tool. So anytime I'm taking or answering one of these questions, I can use this note tool to remind myself of things or write some things down. And these are only for me. These are not graded. So I might want to say, remember your times tables while I'm doing this. And when I X out, the note goes away. I can find the note again anytime by clicking on this. When I hit the review button, notice now that question not only has a bookmark on it, but there's a little symbol that stands for notes that you see here. Now let's take a look at this highlighter tool. So I'm going to click on this and you're going to notice my cursor is going to change. It's going to move with a little yellow kind of stop sign kind of looking symbol underneath. So when I'm taking a test and I'm looking at questions or reading questions, I want to make sure that there's words highlighted that are very important. For instance, in this says explain. So I want to highlight that word to remind me that explain means I have to write some text in a box. It could be anything in a question. Let's say I just want to remember what exactly I have to do. So I'm going to highlight write a number sentence. It's a click with one finger and then drag with the other on my trackpad, and that highlights it. And then when I'm done, just simply click the highlighter to stop using it. So now let's take a look at the answer eliminator tool. So I'm on question number 7, pretty straightforward question with 4 answers. I should let you know that when you're choosing an answer, you can simply tap on it, tap off it. Notice that blue box that appears when I'm choosing answers. I can simply click on those to choose answers and it will change as I want it to change. But let's say there's an answer that I definitely want to make sure that I don't choose. I can do the process of elimination like I could do with a pen or pencil by using this. As I get closer, notice it turns my mouse into an X. And I can say, well, I know it's definitely not the letter D, and I know it's definitely not letter C. And so now I'm going to pick between A and B. So that's the answer eliminator. When I click that away, it goes away, but I can then go over and click to remove any of those answer choices I eliminated if I want to get the question back the way it was. Now let's take a look at another tool called the ruler. So when I click on this, a ruler will appear on the screen, and then I can simply, when I get the crosshairs coming up, can click on it with one finger and then drag it with the other one on my trackpad. So as I move this, I can do some things with it. I can turn it to go from inches to centimeters upside down. I can put it sideways. Now this is not necessarily a question that requires a measurement, but just to show you how I might want to measure something. Let's say I had to measure this line. I can drop that ruler right next to that line, keep it nice and straight, and then measure that, how big or small that I think that it is. When I'm done doing that, I can simply get rid of it by clicking on this, or if I'm using it again, I can use the X to get rid of it that way, and notice it disappears down here. Now let's take a look at using the protractor. So the protractor is very much like the ruler. When I click on it, it appears, and let's say I had to measure this triangle to make sure that it's a right triangle like the question is asking. So I'm going to put those crosshairs on the protractor right where the angle begins, make sure it's nice and straight. And then I can see that this is a 90-degree angle because it goes from 0 up to 90. I can also rotate the protractor if I need to. When I'm done with it, I can simply click the X, the red X on there, or click the button down here. Sometimes when we're taking computer-based tests, it can be hard for us to keep track of the words that are on the screen and reading them. So this line reader can help you do that. It can help you stay focused on what it is that you're reading. So by clicking on this, a box appears that lets me highlight certain words that I am reading. I can extend it and make it long. I can bring it down to just show the words that I need to see. So this allows me to focus on the reading in a more of a paper-like environment where it might make it easier for me to read. That is the line reader. So here are some quirky parts about taking a computer-based test. Obviously, the screen is limited on the size that you can see everything. So here's a question that has apparently no answers to it. It'll say, how much did the plant grow in inches between Monday and Friday? So I'm looking at the question. I'm like, where are my answer choices? Notice over here the sidebar. I have some play with it, and I can also scroll with 2 fingers, which will show me and reveal the answers. So that can happen to me either when I'm taking just the question in a regular size, or if I'm super zoomed in, notice I have one of these bars on the bottom. So by using 2 fingers, I can scroll back and forth, and then I can go up and down to see what I want. So don't forget to look and scroll to see that there's questions already there or answers already there that you can choose from. Now we're going to look at a specific type of question that might seem a little quirky or odd to you. So it shows you a diagram. Then all of a sudden there's a strange box here, and it says something like, show your work. Whenever you see that phrase, show your work, that means that it's required for you to show your mathematical thinking either in symbols that you have listed here or in text. If you see anything that says explain or tell why, well, then you can actually tell why by writing inside the box. But in this case, we just want to show work. So all these things that are listed here are tools. This goes back, this goes forward, so undo, redo. This is a button that allows you to write on the Chromebook screen with your trackpad or a touchscreen. Now, we don't want to use this button because most of you will be taking the test on screens that are not touchscreen. You should never use this button unless your teacher specifically asks you to do so. But I have plus and minus and certain symbols. But you notice I do have some things here that have these kind of rectangles and squares here. Anytime you're required to use anything like this, for instance, a fraction one, if I insert it, you can see that there's blue boxes there. The blue boxes allow me to type in numbers to create the work. So I might want to add 3/5 to the number 4 and hit equals, and I'm showing my work. And that's how these blue boxes work. So that's show your work. Now don't forget, when you scroll further down, you can see that there's also an answer box that looks very similar to the one that you have here. It's not as big, although you notice up here and here, I can drag to resize those boxes. So my answer also can go in here with symbols, and notice I already have the measurement listed there. So look for that as well, that my answer is going to be in degrees. I don't have to put a degree symbol inside my answer. Earlier on, when I was showing you the highlighter tool, I also kind of highlighted explain and write a number sentence. But here's this example of a quirky part of the test as well. The last question that we looked at said to show your work and then answer. This question says explain how you know your answer is correct. So it's asking you to explain, which means you will be typing in some kind of answer that requires writing. So just remember that you can type text in these boxes as well as show mathematical symbols, so you're able to explain your answers. The last little quirky thing that I want to show you is the change in this review button. So normally the review button, until I get the last question of the test, it just says simply review. The last one says review and submit. So when I click on that, you can see that I have a submit test here, but I wanted to show you what a review might look like at the end of your test when you are looking back at it. So I click review and notice anything in white is an answered question. Anything with this little kind of bookmark is a bookmark. Anything here, little pencil and paper, is notes. And then anything in yellow means I didn't answer it. And it's telling me nice and bold, I didn't answer 4 of the questions. Never want to click this submit test button until we have reviewed and made all these yellows turn white. So I'm able to click on these and it takes me right to the question that I need. Notice the submit is gone in this review, but when I click on it, I still have that submit test button. So as I answer these, we'll change these from yellow to white. So I'm going to pick an answer just for the sake of argument. And when I hit review, notice number 5 now is done. So the last part of taking a computer-based test is remembering to submit your test. So now I'm going to hit review and submit on the last question. And notice I don't have any unanswered questions. Yeah, I might have bookmarks or notes that I didn't clear out, and that's not a big deal. Notice all of my questions here are all in white. Once that happens, I can then click submit test, and my test will ask me if I'm sure about it. And there's no way to undo it. So we want to make sure that we have all our questions answered before we submit our test. Well, I hope this helped you understand how to take a computer-based test, and I wish you all the luck in the world.